I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 9, Episode 5 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. It's slated to come out on May 18th, 2026. I almost said March 18th. That would have been incorrect. And we got a couple of good topics, mostly about technology that's cheaper, destroying technology that's more expensive, or identifying it. But first, we're going to talk about a beer. So I got this last week. We did the Pero Lime and whatever lager. This week, I have a Stone Buenaveza. I'm guessing Buenaveza lager. It's got like a sugar mask on the can, and there's not a whole lot of copy on it other than it's 4.7%, and it is a salt and lime added lager. So let's see what it's like.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's well brewed. It's very clean, very crisp. I think it's not quite flavorful enough for me. I wish it had a little bit more of any of the primary flavors. So it does have some kind of citriness to it. You can tell there's some lime in there. That's good. It's like the tiniest bit saline. You can tell there's like a little bit of salt to it. And then, like, the underlying lager isn't super flavorful, but it's not bad. I think I'd rather, like, one of those flavors be stronger. Like, if it had more lime, it'd be great. If it was just, like, a stronger lager, that'd also be great. It might even just, if it was saltier, be, like, hit it more. Right now, it just feels to me like a little bit too watery.
Yeah, I can see where you're getting at. What it does remind me of is something that's like a Bud Light or something like that with lime drop down inside of it.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. You know, it's some kind of
Excuse me.
mass consumption ale, which is not, I'm not using that in a derogatory sense, but just the, like, once you try and be like a big name beer of like, in every restaurant's going to carry me, you kind of center in on a particular flavor profile that's just like well tolerated, right?
Exactly.
Like, you're not trying to make the tastiest thing in the world, you're trying to make the thing that most people will drink.
Right.
Yeah, you take a beer like that and then you throw a lime in it.
Yeah.
I can see that.
It isn't bad. It's not one of the things that I would reach for. It's kind of like the one that we had last week. If you're really into a mild sipping beer that you can just have like and crush it after like doing some yard work or something like that. I mean, this isn't the one I'd reach for, but if you drink a Bud Light after that and, or like a little bit of lime in your Corona or something like that, this would be a good one where you don't have to go to that extra step, of putting the lime in.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's not a bad beer. I think I don't like it as much as the one from last week, but I will say, it's not offensive. It is a good sipping beer.
Yeah.
I think in the metaphor we're using of this is like a Bud Light and someone threw a lime in, I would take a sip of that Bud Light and be like, this needs one more lime. Like, that's just where I'm at. It's not bad. It just, truthfully, if I poured this into a glass, I would just garnish it with another lime.
Yeah.
Put another lime in it, and it would probably be fine.
And I wonder if people that drink this normally do.
Maybe.
I don't know, but either way, it's beautifully clear.
Yeah, it's great color. It's brewed very well. It's very, very clean.
Right. So we'll see how it warms up towards the end of the podcast and go from there. But it's not bad. So yeah, if you're into that sort of beer, like a summer crisp lager kind of thing, I probably would go for Leinenkugel's, beer, like one of their shandies or something like that. But this, if you don't like those, is a good alternative. Excuse me, I coughed. I got some down the wrong pipe a few minutes ago, and I don't know if you can tell, but suddenly I have become phlegmy.
Yeah.
And
to give you a pass right here, I'm very proud of myself for not coughing this season. Well, you're probably going to see it before the end of the season. I'm taking a medication, and I didn't know it was the medication until yesterday, so I've stopped taking it. But I just developed a dry cough out of nowhere, like a couple months ago, and I've been dealing with it every single day. And then I was just like, what's going on here? It's been like 2.5 months, and I just like was looking through my medications because I'm getting on a new one, and the pharmacy will tell you they don't interact, which is I trust them, but I'm also kind of sensitive to medication, so I always like to know, like, okay, what are the uncommon things that can happen, because I'm often impacted by those. It's like 20% of people develop a dry cough on this medicine. I was like, there we go.
There we go. I can't get away from it.
All right, Tim. So I stopped taking that meds. So maybe next week I'll be fine. But you watch these next couple episodes. There's going to be the temptation.
You're going to be like, I'm going to cough. I'm going to cough. Okay, so the next two topics are kind of one topic in essence. But the idea is, so in right now the U.S. is in a war. Our leadership is going back and forth on calling it a war, but it's a war.
Yeah.
We picked on another country, and they're retaliating. We've unloaded a bunch of ordnance on them, and they've defeated a lot of that ordnance by using cheaper drones, like drone swarms that just kind of go in and destroy the ordnance, or they've defeated things that we would use as protection against ordnance by sending in those drones. On the same flip side of that, someone sent a Bluetooth tracker to a top secret ship out in the European Baltic or whatever, and we're able to publish its location. In a world where there is so much tracking and stuff like that, and it's used against the populace, essentially. It is insane to think that won't or can't happen to your military, because they're part of the populace, but also these things are designed in such a way it's fairly easy to get information off of them if you just know how to do it. Or to use them to do like really insane things that we wouldn't conceive of, just because that wasn't the purpose that they were originally designed for. Like, most drones weren't designed to go out and, well, I should take that back. We've had unmanned drones or remotely manned drones for a long time that were used for like surveillance and stuff like that, but they really weren't designed for combat, like going into combat and doing some of the things that we're doing with combat.
Yeah, not quite in the way that we see it now. That they're so small that there's essentially someone piloting, kind of essentially like a kamikaze drone.
Yeah.
We've had drone warfare for a long time, but they were kind of more replacing like bombers and things like that. When you think of the offensive capabilities, there were drones that could launch missiles and stuff like that. But those were way up in the sky doing their stuff and then leaving. It really highlights, I think, why conflicts like what we're in right now are becoming rare and rare.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much of warfare today is so incredibly costly for not a whole ton of benefit in certain circumstances. I'm never going to say that having, aircraft carriers isn't an incredibly powerful military asset. But, this has been the name of the game in the Middle East for a while. I mean, when the conflicts with Israel were going on, and they're always going on. Israel's been dealing with that forever.
Right.
And they've got one of the most expensive defense systems in the world. And the people fighting them were not launching incredibly high-tech missiles at them. I mean, more recently there's been some of that, but the traditional, hey, we're being attacked, is like they're chucking literal boulders. They've got like catapults, like mortars. They're just shooting over that don't have an explosive payload. Because what they're doing is they're just trying to overwhelm the Iron Dome, the defense system. And like, that scrap metal costs them $1,000. Each one of those missiles is more than $100,000.
Right.
There's not, unless you want the land, which is why like Russia's doing what Russia's doing. Unless for some reason you want to control the physical space, you don't see, there's no point to do a conflict like this. This is what all the economic sanctions are, and all the trade battles and all the other like cybersecurity stuff. You know, we're our government is trying to take control of a physical space because they want to run that straight or whatever it is in the world they're doing, or whatever they're to themselves their
Yeah.
justification for what they're doing it is.
Exactly.
But it's just such a lossy way to do things, and we're running through stockpiles at record rates because 100% you can just get $1,000 drone and it's got to be taken out of the sky.
Yeah.
Like, even if it never gets anywhere, like it never hurts a single person or anything like that, what they have to spend to shoot it out of the sky is more than you spent to get it.
Yeah.
And this is the real problem with going against Iran, is that that's a rich country.
Yeah.
You know, not that I support what happened in Afghanistan, but at least Afghanistan was an incredibly poor country.
Right.
Like, America walked in and had the cities on lock pretty fast, and then there's the tons of resistance movements that eventually wore us down. But Iran just actually has the money just to say, okay, I'll buy 100,000 drones. Who cares?
Yeah.
And I'll raise all the prices for you going through the strait. So kind of you're paying for it.
Yeah.
That's Trump's playbook. They're buying drones and we're paying for them.
Exactly.
You know, I don't understand. I won't get political with it, but I don't really understand the conflict. It doesn't make a lot of tactical sense because, it's going to cost us so much money to do it successfully. Like, the amount we spend right now is nothing. Truly, if we decide that, we need to take Iran and boots are going to be on the ground, it's going to be such an appalling bill to do it for, at least I think where the average person sits, for what benefit?
Exactly. I think the topic here in my mind also kind of leans into, if you're looking at the technologies and you're thinking about, we've got a massive data center that's doing all this number crunching and everything because it's got these huge LLMs in it. How much better is that than something that, maybe training wise, you don't get as good of a result because you don't have as massive of a data set. Forget how you got that data set, right? Just you don't have as massive of a data set if you're local. But if you're talking about training a thing, that kind of creates a slightly different conversation. But when you talk about actually using it, how much better is a Chat GPT than a local LLM, and how much better is a setup for someone's home automation than it is a building automation and things like that. It costs, it costs me maybe $1,000 to kit my house out, right? But when you look at what a building is doing, which is the same thing almost exactly, they're doing it with things that cost $5,000-$6,000, per deployment, but I can buy something that does almost the exact same thing for $60. And what I mean by that is there's sensors and lights in a building now, right? I bought this thing called a Shelly that is like a power monitoring and a light switch relay, or it's just a relay. I can attach it to anything, but it's really intended for light switches. And I can control the lights in my garage and the outside light just outside of the garage with my home automation that's run locally on my Raspberry Pi. I also have a motion sensor that I put, it's not a motion sensor, it's a presence sensor, but I put a presence sensor in the garage that senses distance and all that other stuff. And so when someone goes into the garage, the lights automatically come on. When my garage door opens, the lights come automatically on. So if I'm driving the car in or something like that. And if one of us forgets the light on the outside of the house, I can turn it off, and eventually I'll automate it to where that'll come on automatically too. So I just wonder if I spent like $60 ish to do this. What is the benefit of having these major systems? That, I mean, is there like more of a reliability or anything like that? Because I'm not seeing the reliability, comparatively. We still have problems where things get knocked offline, just like they would in my house. We have to go troubleshoot them. It would be interesting to see the statistics, but the question that I'm wondering from all this is, what's the advantage of spending all this money other than just to spend all this money, and effort and everything, when you can basically get the same sort of results for something that costs much less?
Yeah. So, I think you're really hitting on, I think the struggle right now with AI is where is the line of performance versus cost?
Right.
Like, I think most people can probably agree that the LLMs running in massive data centers can do more than the stuff that you can put in your house. Now, you can go back and forth on, do you need the extra things it does? Definitely, everyone's got a use case. Like, you've got a very specific use case you're looking for, and it sounds like there's a very specific tool that you can use to do it. But, I kind of agree with you. Where I sit, the Chat GPTs and the Claudes and everything like that, they are great. They're cool things that can do lots of stuff. And it's great that you can kind of go to it and just ask it to do something, and you don't necessarily have to find a specialized tool. So when you look in the complete vacuum of what does the most, sure, these guys win. But then as soon as you have to say, but what does it cost you to get it? Now this is that kind of really muddy area that nobody wants to talk about, where, like, sure, a bajillion dollars is getting sent as we spent on ChatGPT and everything else. We're proposing these massive data centers that absorb more electricity than the entire rest of the state they're being put in, and exactly. Stuff like that. I read a terrible statistic that the one they're talking about in Utah is going to raise nighttime temperatures by 28 degrees in the area.
That's ridiculous.
Now, they're in like an arid desert, so they have pretty big temperature swings.
Right.
But it was something like 9 degrees during the day, 28 degrees at night for the local area because of all the cooling and everything like that. It's crazy environmental impact. What are we really objectively getting out of it, other than the promise that maybe we can do better?
Right.
And I think that's another hard point from AI going out of academia into the business space. Is in academia, tons of AI stuff is happening. For a very long time, and it might still be the case. I haven't talked to an AI academic researcher in a while, but for a long time, large language models were kind of dismissed as even like as just not being worth it. It wouldn't what you would need to make it run wasn't worth what you'd get out of it. So for a long time, AI research was on these very specific tools, and I'm not sure where it is now. So don't quote me on that. Maybe they've changed their mind now that they've seen some large language models exist. But like in a research setting, I think it makes a lot of sense to say, okay, we can spend an X amount of money. We'll get some grants put together. Let's go find answers. But now all of the advancement is really happening in now the enterprise in the private sector, and it's people spending this bajillion dollars to hopefully build a product that's profitable.
Right.
And I think we've already had some talks about is that being done ethically and things of that nature. So yeah, so I guess a real roundabout way to say I'm not sure what the answer is yet. I think that's the real thing, the real question of this, what people are calling the AI bubble.
Yeah.
Is this going to actually become a thing that suddenly it is worth it? And then like, oh man, if you were the people that invested early, you're going to do great.
Yeah.
ChatGPT now is in every electronic in your house, and they all sync up together, and or like whatever.
You've got a smart toaster that's actually smart and not just internet connected.
Yeah, you're just talking to it over lunch, just planning your day for
Yeah.
you, and then your microwave checks in. It's like, well, actually, who knows what little sci-fi thing, because it's the future, right? So, like, sure, if that happens and when there's there's amazing value and everyone loves it, that's awesome. But I think we're already at a space that the regular person is not seeing a benefit, but they are seeing the negatives.
Right.
Like, if I lived in Utah right now, I'd be out protesting with everybody else.
Yep.
That made a lot of news headlines of basically they kicked the community out of
Yeah.
the meeting about it and approved it, despite the fact there were like 2,000 people at town hall or something like that.
Yeah.
It's we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I don't think there's an answer yet. But I'm excited to see what it is.
I think, kind of to wrap this up, that what we're both saying is, it seems like there is a point where you get a return on investment for your technology.
Mm-hmm.
And traditionally, what we've done is gone big, but we haven't thought about efficiencies, at least in a lot of these places. Like, the examples that we have here are, expensive military ships that are top secret, like tens of $100,000 missiles and stuff like that, and they're being defeated by these relatively cheap little gadgets that were pretty much made for consumer stuff. They weren't really made for these military grade actions. And a lot of that stuff is just it costs a lot of money, but it's also the lowest bidder. So it's the cheapest of the super expensive, missile or hammer that costs, $100,000 or whatever it is. We've heard all these things, but it's true. Military and government contracts generally get bloated because people want to eke more money out of those places and see them kind of like a corporation that they can pull a bunch of money out of.
Mm-hmm.
But off the shelf parts that are inexpensive kind of rule the day for a lot of this stuff. And I was doing some research on this and looking at like what you can do with ESP32 that costs like $15, $10.
Oh yeah,
$5, and
and it goes even further than that. Like not to interrupt your recap, but if you've ever seen where like people really I'm not sure you still see it anymore because I haven't, but there was a push there for a little while where people were like, hey, stop shipping your phones overseas to like if there were these like, hey, we'll buy any phone, it doesn't matter if it's broken or anything, for like $50, $100 or something like that. And in the U.S., generally people doing that stuff are melting it down to get the components out of it. So they're like trying to get the gold and everything else, and they pay you just a small fraction. But for a while there were people paying more, and we're like, hey, ship it to us over eBay or something like that. And it was just foreign terrorist groups and stuff like that who are like, it doesn't matter if your screen's broken because what I want to do is I want to pull off the little chips.
Right.
And then now I've got chips to do things.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And $300 for a broken phone seems like a lot to somebody like us, but $300 for a phone that you can turn into a bomb is pretty cheap.
Yeah, especially when in a lot of those countries, like getting those things just embargoed anyway.
Right, exactly.
Like, it's already, they're already having to smuggle it in. Why not just get a cheap broken thing from anywhere in the world instead of like, well, now I got to work through like Chinese black market or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of the thing that I'm saying. Like whether you're talking about warfare or individual stuff, there's just, it's not that consumer stuff is better than the stuff that you get, but is it that much like worse?
Yeah.
And it's
Where's
really
the cost performance?
Not getting to that point. Like, I could give more examples. I'm not going to keep giving examples, but I think it boggles my mind, the cost and the expense that we're putting into things when we don't really need to. So I don't know that there was a point to this story. I just thought it would be interesting to talk about. But this has been Season 9, Episode 5 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. It's slated to come out on May 18th, 2026. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.